Welcome along to this episode of Voices of Fostering, where today I'm delighted to be joined by Amelia, who's one of our foster carers. Hello, Amelia.
Hi.
Welcome along. Thank you so much for speaking to us today. So you've been a foster carer for 10 years, is that right?
Yes, with my husband as well, yeah. We've both been fostering for 10 years now. I think it's coming to 10 years now.
Take us right back to the beginning, Amelia, because you had a very different career, didn't you, before you started foster caring? So tell us about that.
Yes. Well, our main career for both of us, because that's how we met originally, is we worked in casinos in central London, which tend to be quite sort of high roller type casinos. I started working in 88. He was already working there. And I did that for 20 years, which is a long time. And I left when my children I felt that I needed to be home with them. So I stopped working in 2008 there. But my husband carried on because he was a director, so he had a much more involved job. After that, I got the children into secondary school, and then I decided that I was a bit bored because I don't like not doing things. And for a while, I went into, first of all, we bought a pub, and we ran a pub for a couple of years.
Oh, wow, okay.
I did not like that.
It wasn't for you.
I hated that. And then for a while, I worked for a few restaurants, managing them. So I was a manager with Pizza Express and with a company called Ed's Burgers. And I was working for Jamie Oliver's restaurant when my husband said, I've seen this advert for fostering. I didn't even know what fostering was because I'm Spanish, and in Spain, we don't have fostering. And I just thought, yeah, that's exactly the sort of thing that would suit me for many reasons. You know, I like people. I like having people around. I like children. I like my children were at secondary school as well, so it would have meant I could have been at home with them. So we decided to just look into it just to see what it was. That's how it all sort of started. That's it. My husband carried on working, and then...
So it was literally an advertisement, Amelia. So that's amazing, isn't it? Because you think somebody could be watching this right now. Maybe it's just popped up on their social media or something. And the same thing could happen for them. You know, it could spark that idea in their head. So what did that lead on to then? Like, why did you think you'd be good at it?
Because I think the way it was said, it was something along the lines of, you know, do you have room in your life to take care of a child? And at the time, I thought that sounded perfect. We had the room. My children were not so young anymore, so you know. And at the time, I just thought, yeah, that sounds like something that I could do, and I could do alongside having my own family. You know, they could just be part of a bigger family.
Yeah.
To be honest, I wasn't too sure what it involved. I didn't realize it was so. I honestly thought it was, which I'm sure a lot of people get this. I thought it was to just get another child and it comes in and he lives with you, and it's just like having 3 children instead of 2.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I thought it was going to be like, which is not just that. There are lots of other things, but I just don't know. I thought it would fit us as a family, and it did actually.
So going back to 10 years ago then, if you can remember, can you remember what the assessment process was like, what the training was like? Can you remember that whole process?
Yeah, I do vividly. The assessment was long, and it was very, very in-depth. It was a very in-depth assessment. We had a social worker. She was a lovely, lovely lady. She came to us, and it was almost like psychotherapy at times because you were talking about things you hadn't thought about for years, how you felt about this and how do you think that. And it was actually lovely. I mean, I really enjoyed it, but it went on for a good 4-5 months.
Yeah.
And then
So many
obviously,
people say that, Amelia, that they learn so much about themselves in that process. Yeah.
it definitely made you think about things, because obviously the people doing this are very good, and they ask questions that make you think and talk about things that you didn't even know you knew, or they were in your head. So no, it was great. And then obviously once we passed that, we had to do the big book. Can't remember what it's called now, TDS or something, like the training to, which I'm not sure they do anymore, but that was really good as well, because you were learning about things which were very relevant to your own life, to your own children as well, you know. But I mean, you have to forgive me. I'm a bit of a training bug. Me, I love training. I love courses and
Yeah. And there's lots of
learning.
it to do, isn't there? There's lots of things to learn.
I think I've done
And
them all.
And you've done, we'll get onto this in a few minutes, but you've ended up doing some quite specialised fostering, haven't you? But if we go back to that first placement that you had, that first child or young person that you had live with you, can you tell us about that? What was it
Right.
like?
The first person I had as a sort of thing was a bit of a strange situation. He was an asylum seeker young boy, and there were a lot of complications and issues with him, a lot of things that were not. But that in itself was very interesting, because I had to help him through the whole sort of legal side of asylum seeker, because the things he was saying did not really correspond with the things we were witnessing, and I had to take him for a lot of meetings, and I'd take him to Croydon, to Luna House, to do all the paperwork, and that in itself was, you know, like out of your comfort zone, but very, very educational, if you want. You know, you get to know a lot of things that you didn't know before. It wasn't a very long placement, because it was decided by the whole team that he would be better off placed with a religious sensitive placement, where somewhere where they, because he was a Muslim, and he would fit better in a Muslim household. So he was only with me for 3 months, or maybe a bit more than that by the time they found. Anyway, but the one I considered to be my first placement, the one that broke my heart a little bit, was my first long-term placement, which was a boy. He came to us for respite, and we really fit really well together. And then his carers decided to stop fostering, which was very sad, because he had been led to believe that that was his forever placement, which I think is one of the reasons why now they never say that so much, forever placements, because things happen, and
Yeah.
these children have suffered so much already. They've had so much rejection and horrible things. To spend a couple of years telling him, this is it, get settled, this is it, till we'll take you through. And then for whatever reason, I'm not criticizing the carers, but the point is, oh, that's it, now you got to move again, is not nice. So anyway, he ended up coming to live with us, because he had spent a couple of weeks respite with us, and I really, really thought, slight rose tinted, that I could be his mum for him, and I loved him, and I wanted him to be, and he had his own life to carry, and that didn't fit with him staying with us forever. He had a lot of like a lot of the children have a lot of things that they're carrying with them, and he was on like a 2-year cycle. Every 2 years he felt like he had to move, and when the 2 years approached, he literally sabotaged the placement, because he just wanted to go. And it was nothing against us. He just needed to move on. That was his life journey. And I've seen him since, and he's been lovely. And he's said, I'm very sorry that I was like that, because he's grown up now. But I just had to. And that broke my heart a little bit, because it was like letting my child, because the best thing I could do for him was to let him go.
Mm.
But even that was learning, because
Yeah.
it taught me that sometimes the best thing you can do for somebody is let them go. Because is, fostering, if there's one thing I've learned in 10 years, is fostering is about the children, not about you. You're there for them, and it has to be what's good for them, not for you.
And I think that's what one of the main things I hear that people who are thinking about fostering worry about, how will I let a child go? But you do, don't you? Because as you say, it's about the child, not about you.
Absolutely. And for him to stay here was creating more problems in his own head, because he had issues with attachment, and his mum was still in the picture and things. And I think he felt that if he was too attached to somebody, that was being disloyal to his own family. So he, by not fully attaching to somebody else, that's how he dealt with it. It was complicated, but that broke my heart a little bit, but it made me stronger, because a lot of these things do make you stronger. And it changed the way I approach placements after that, for the better, by still giving and obviously creating a nurturing, loving thing, but not taking like these people belong to you. Because at the end of the day, no children, not even your own children, belong to you. They're not yours. They're their own people, and you have to see what's good for them. So
it sounds like, Amelia, you've learned so much in this 10 years, haven't you? What would you say the main sort of things that you've learned so far have been?
I've learned that people have to do what they have to do sometimes, and I've learned that you can, and it sounds like a cliche, but you can take a horse to the water, but you can't make it drink it at all. And sometimes, any good you do is better than nothing. It's no good saying, oh, well, it's not going to change, so I'm not going to do it. You still do it. Even though when you see that what you're doing is not making a huge difference. It is. It may not look like it at the time, but they will come back to you years later and say, what I learned when I was with you, what you did for me, changed my life. And that's you may not get that reward immediately while they're being horrible to you and having that old tension and whatever, but you get it afterwards when they say, I learned that, and I'm what I am now because of what you did. And that's amazing. That's and I've had some very, very good, don't get me wrong, not every placement has gone perfect, because sometimes things happen, but on the whole, I would say 95% of my placements have been very positive experiences.
And
all
now,
different.
Of course, all different, because you've gone on to fostering parent and child
Yes,
groups. Is that right? Yeah,
that's my favorite thing to do.
So tell us about that then.
Right, that is it used to be called Mum and Baby, and then it was considered that was very wrong to say that, because it's not always mum and baby. Yeah. I've had mums and babies. I've had mums and children that are no longer babies, and I've had mum, dad, child, and baby. I had a placement with 4 people. It's all about trying to give people a chance to keep their families together.
Yeah.
And to me, there is nothing more important than a family staying together. Because I honestly believe that every time a child has to be taken away from their parents, that is a tragedy. And we can do, sometimes there is no choice, obviously. And I'm not saying that children should not be taken away from parents. Sometimes there is no choice. But on the whole, if there is anything you can do to stop that, to keep families together, that is the best for the child and for the parents. So with parent and child, you are there at that moment where there is a danger that those children will be removed from their parents. And you're there to try to help them become better parents. And to me, that is the nicest and best thing you can do, the most rewarding. Because with the other fostering, you're almost at the aftermath. The bad things have already happened. The chances have not been given or been taken. and you're basically dealing with what's already happened. Children have been removed from parents. You have to find, a nurturing environment for them to try to make them be happy and grow. But with parent and child, you're there at the beginning. You're there and you want to stop it. And touch wood, I've only lost one. There was only one case where they have not kept their children. All the other ones have got their children. I still get messages from them saying photos with the children, how well they're doing and how, and to me, that is amazing.
Priceless. Absolutely priceless.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So at what point in your 10-year journey so far, Amelia, did you start doing this type of fostering?
Right. What happened is I had a child that was placed with me while I had the other boy, the one that I struggled to hold on to and then let go. And he was a very complex case. That's when we did all the therapeutic fostering to be able to cope with him. He had a lot of high needs. So much so that it was decided that he couldn't be placed with any other children. So it was either we kept him as a solo placement or he had to go to some kind of, residential unit. I wasn't going to let him go to any residential units because, he'd been with me for a while by then and we stuck by him. But he couldn't be placed alongside any other children because it was dangerous for, you have to take care, you have to safeguard everybody. So for a while, I thought, okay, I will try doing parent and child alongside him because obviously that would not be other children. That would be a complete different thing. And I did about 2 or 3 placements alongside my boy. And that didn't work either because he was jealous of the babies. But we tried. Anyway, while I did that, I realized that was really my calling and what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But obviously, I wasn't going to let this boy down because that's not in our nature. If you're doing something, you have to do it. So we waited till he was 18 and moved on. And then I decided to just do parent and child. And so that's been for about 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah. And you talk about, sometimes the situations can get quite difficult and quite challenging. Do you feel like you have adequate support, though? There's always someone to speak to or someone to help you. Yeah.
Absolutely. I've had, touch wood, I've had very, very good social workers, my supervisors, social workers. They have always been there for me. I've never felt like I was on my own when I've had, touch wood, I've not had that many bad times. We had a really bad time at the time when that boy was on his way out but even then my social worker was, she was coming to see me a couple of times a week. I must say he had a brilliant social worker, which is not always the case, but he did have his own social worker, was brilliant as well. And so we had a good team put together. So yeah, that's never been a problem. And we're quite strong people, both myself and my husband. Coming from a career in casinos, you learn a lot about diffusing situations and dealing with people which are not very happy and things like that. So you basically transferable skills.
And that's the thing, Amelia. There are so many transferable skills that you can use in fostering, aren't there?
Absolutely. And it's like anything. Sometimes different people will behave differently in different placements. The boy that we ended up taking all the way through his 18, when he came to me, it was like a last chance saloon. He had sabotaged a couple of placements. The last placement he was in, they had to call the police on him because he was such a horrible person and he had done this because some of the referrals are horrible. But that's not what the reality then is. Sometimes when things are written down, they sound horrible. They sound like, oh God, scary. But you need to meet the person to know whether you're going to be, because he came here and we clicked like that. And he was a little angel for me most of the time. He was horrible to other people, but he loved me.
But you developed a good
Yeah.
bond and a good trust with him. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, he could not do enough for me. He was like, in fact, there was, and this is another conversation, there was a level of over attachment linked to his own problems. But the point is, if you had gone on his, because when you're looking for a placement, they send you this information sheet. You would never have gone near that child. But the reality was, living with him was no problem whatsoever. Not for me, anyway. It was actually much easier than other people who did not come with a massive. And this has applied a few times as well. I mean, I've had some parent and child that have come with horrible, like, when you read the thing, like convictions and this and that. But then you meet them and they are normal people and they're very nice people and people you can have a very good rapport with. So don't be too scared by what you read in paper.
Yeah.
Have an open mind.
Yeah, definitely. An open mind is definitely needed, isn't it? And I want to talk about your birth children, Amelia, because you have 2 birth children, don't you? How has it been with them? Were you, obviously you said they were older, they weren't young children when you started. Yeah.
Yeah, I've often reflected on that. I don't know how it would have worked, because I know some people foster while the children are quite young, and it works with the families. I think it's very difficult for me to reflect on that, because it would have been a different experience. Because I can't help thinking, if I had fostered when my children were younger, chances are is I would have been given younger children to foster, because the matching system works like that. But because my boys were older, I've only ever fostered teenagers. I mean, the youngest child was the last one, the one that ended up as a solo placement. And he was 12, going on 13 by the time he came. All the other ones have been older. So I don't know how it would have fitted. So I can't really talk about something I haven't experienced. From my experience, my boys were already in secondary school. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to say they were best friends and they got together. That was not my experience. They kept themselves to themselves, and the foster children. There was never any problems. There was never any arguments or anything at all between them. But they were never that close either. That could be to do with their own personalities. Teenage boys can be quite odd at times, all of them, including mine. My eldest is Asperger's as well, so he's not that gregarious anyway. And they were both obviously doing the GCSEs and then their A levels, and then they went to uni. So there's never been any issues, but there's never been that much. We did go on holidays together and everything, and we always got on really well, because I took my foster children everywhere with me.
Do you think, though, that it's had a positive effect on your birth children's sort of general outlook on life, though?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. I mean, in fact, both of them mention their fostering experience on their university introduction letter, because I think is something that has changed them as people. I think it makes you realize that life can be very complicated, and at the same time, is not, because people are people regardless of where they come from, and you have to treat every person at face value, at who they are and what they do, not what you cannot be prejudiced, you cannot have preconceived ideas of what people are. So it definitely make them more open-minded.
Yeah. And Amelia, you've had such a rich journey, really, haven't you, in the last 10 years? There's been ups and downs, there's been challenges, there's been, amazing moments as well. Why would you say you continue to do it? What makes you keep on fostering?
I like having people in my life. I like being busy. I get very not not bored. Bored is the wrong idea. I feel like restless when I don't have something. And I find, especially with the parent and child, you get such an involvement with it that it sort of like gives another dimension to your life. You feel like you're doing something, and you're doing something that's worthwhile. I love babies as well. And it's nice having a baby in the house.
And you get to have lots of babies in your house, yeah.
And often you see them right from birth, and you then see them growing up. So it's like having extra family. I don't know. I don't know, to be honest, why we carry on. We carry on because that's what we do. At some point, we'll have to stop, I suppose.
Not for a long time, yeah. So, but what do you get from it? How does it make you feel?
It makes you feel like you're doing something worthwhile.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like what you do makes a difference, which I think is important for people to feel that what they do is important and matters. I just like it. I like, I get, as I say, I get very involved with them, and sort of gives you something. Otherwise, days can be very long.
And Amelia, going back 10 years, you said at the start of our chat that you started fostering because your husband saw an advert, which is amazing.
It was walking, there was a big banner outside the office. They used to have an office in Chatham then.
And now 10 years later, as we scroll through our Facebook feeds or our Instagram feeds, somebody might come across this video and, had never thought about fostering before. What would you say to that person?
If you think it's something you can do, definitely go and find out. It may come to nothing. Once you find out what it is, it may not be for you, but don't be thinking it may or may not be, because chances are it will be good for you. I actually find on the years while my boys were at secondary, doing fostering was actually very beneficial for me as well, because it meant I was at home taking care of my foster children and my own children at the same time. Because when you go to work, normally you're out of the house for 8 or 9 hours a day by the time you do your commute and back. This way, you're still in the house and you're doing a worthwhile job. But at the same time, you can take care of your own home and your own family. And that's amazing. There's not many jobs that give you that. Because even when people say, I'm working from home, if you're working, you're not with your children. With these, you can be doing both. Because when my foster children were doing their homework, my children were doing their homework. So I could be there for all of them. So there's not many jobs that are proper jobs where you can actually do that. So if you have a family yourself, it's the perfect situation. That's how I mean, now that I don't have my own children, because my children are grown up now, I do it for a different reason. I do it to have people around, because otherwise I'm lonely. Because I miss having all the people around. And by having the parent and child, you have lots of people around you. And, you can be with them. And it's like having extra family. Having guests come to stay. And they bring a baby with them.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for speaking to us today, Amelia. It's been amazing to hear your story, and I'm sure it will inspire so many people to maybe, make that contact and start their journey as well. So thank you so much, Amelia.
You're welcome. It's lovely. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Voices of Fostering. If you'd like to get involved in the conversation, we would love to hear your questions. Maybe there's something you'd really like to ask about fostering. Get in touch. You can email us on podcast@nfa.co.uk.